Hi everyone, welcome to our segment on Scottish Chiefs. My name is Jude Mackenzie. I'm with the Northern Arizona Celtic Heritage Society, and I'm here with Richard Mcbain. Now, how do we say your full title? Richard Mcbain of Mcbain, Tannist to the Chief Mcbain.
Close. We can shorten that just by saying Richard Mcbain of Mcbain Younger, which stands for Tannist, which means I'm next in line.
Okay, you do have a few gray hairs, so younger. Anyway, so, but we need to thank our grantors, because without their generous support, we wouldn't be able to do all of the things that we do. So our grantors are the Arizona Commission on the Arts, Flagstaff Arts Council, Arizona Community Foundation, well, the Flagstaff Community Foundation portion, the City of Flagstaff, and Coconino County. So let's get down to Scottish Chiefs. What does it mean to be a Scottish chief?
Well, one of the chiefs of Clan McPherson named Clooney, they're all named Clooney from that clan, used to say that a Scottish chief is a grandfather. So the idea is that members of the clan look to you for advice when it comes to things about the Scottish side of their life. That would be, I think, one of the best definitions, because it's as much about family as it is about law.
Well, family is important. That's why we're all together. That's why we celebrate all of our Celticness. So how do you get to be a Scottish chief? Like if I decide I'm just going to go out and this is my year, I'm going to do this.
Just going to do this. It kind of doesn't, maybe not. It kind of is a direct bloodline. And that's why in our case, my father, who is actually the chief, although he's retired his duties, you can't actually retire as a chief, but the way we would speak of my father was we would say James Mcbain of the ancient Clan Mcbain. And I think I missed, anyways, he's a direct descendant. So he's the 22nd chief of Clan Mcbain. We skipped about 20 or so because we were chiefless for over 200 years. So as you called me earlier as a Tannist, I could also be called acting chief, because I do all of the duties of a chief. But as you notice, I'm wearing one feather, where a chief would wear 3.
So tell me about these feathers.
So these are eagle feathers, and they're a way to differentiate a chief from a distance from non-chiefs. I think a great deal of the heraldry that you see in Scotland has to do with being able to learn things about a group of people from a visual distance. At a time when language was not easy to use to talk to various tribes or clans, we used a lot of symbols and graphics in the way of flags, in the way of feathers. And so an eagle feather, 3 of them, represents the head of the family. That would be a chief. A single feather represents the next in line, a Tannist. Notice we kind of skipped 2 feathers. A 2 feather is often, it's something that the Court of Lion, which is an official court in Scotland that is in jurisdiction all of this, frowns upon. But a 2-feathered chief is actually something called a chieftain. He cannot be, or she cannot be, of the bloodline of the family, and is a representative often sent to games, for example, where the chief can't attend but would like his clan represented at the highest level. So,
all right.
So there you go.
I do understand, well, 2 things I want to ask you. So I do understand that in the military, there's a different use of the feathers, and our very own Bruce Hitchings talked a little bit about that in a presentation that he did, but that's completely different from what you're saying, so I guess that's really a comment, not a question. And you say female chiefs of clans? I'm thinking this sounds pretty good. You're
getting back into it here. Well, if your clan had never had a chief, you could become a chief. It's a long, arduous road, and I don't know it perfectly, but I do know that you can be elected as a commander of your clan with the blessing of the Lord Lion Court. And yes, you could do that as a woman, not just as a man. There are at least 10 Scottish women chief right now in Scotland. So if your clan never had a chief, you could become a commander. I think it takes 25 years. And if nobody else decides they would like to challenge you, then eventually it can come up to a vote. Chances are what historically happens is somebody challenges you and the 25 years starts over again.
I don't think I have long enough to worry about this, so we'll leave it at that. What else can I ask you about being a clan chief? What happens when the clan chief passes and we're now going to the next chief?
Well, probably the most common way that a clan chief passes on to the next member would be the eldest son, similar to the British system. The difference is it doesn't have to be that way. The clan chief can designate, as long as it's in the chiefly line, chiefly bloodline, the clan chief can designate who the next chief will be. A good case in point is my own grandfather, who is one of a handful of American chiefs. So you notice I'm not exactly speaking with a wonderful Scottish brogue. That's because I grew up in the desert, amongst the cactus. But I've spent years and years studying the Scottish system, and my grandfather, in his case, in the late 50s, started doing correspondence, and lo and behold, he was able to see that he was related to the chiefly line, and he was able to find the chief de jure. And what that means is the man who should be chief but was never matriculated. His arms weren't registered with the Lion Court. And that chief de jure at the time lived in, of all places, Canada. And so my grandfather went and notified this man that he was essentially the chief of the great clan Mcbain. Unfortunately, this man was near his deathbed. My grandfather then, in correspondence with the Lord Lion Court, had his papers matriculated and presented them to him, upon which time, very near his end of life, he gave his chiefship to my grandfather. So at the time, there were probably 12 people alive that could have easily claimed that chiefship. But again, it's up to the chief to say, you will be next. So hopefully that kind of gets you there. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Now, okay, so now you're a chief. I'm sure a lot of people think, wow, now I'm a chief. Automatically I have a castle to go to claim, to live in. Maybe not. Maybe
not in our case. I think we are part of the Cat Clan, or I should say association. Clanhatten is a group of 13 clans. Some people actually use the term super clan. But if we go back to the 1380s or so, these 13 clans bonded together and signed a writ of peace between these 13 clans and became a larger organization to beat off the predatory people from, say, England. So that is called Clanhatten, but it's actually an association. So we're one of 13 clans. We migrated from La Harbour to Moy with Clan Macintosh. We were kind of the spear of their army division. So we had a great house at one time, and as you've heard from other members of interviews, lots of lands were taken and lost, and lots of people moved out of Scotland. And while we didn't have a castle, we did have a great house, but that is long gone. But we do have a memorial park in Scotland where Mcbains and Scots from around the world come to stand on the ground that was in our family as early as 1300.
Amazing.
It's a special feeling. You step on a small piece of land, but it's special knowing that how many generations back does it take to get to the 1300s, and your kin stood on that ground.
Yeah, that's an amazing feeling. I know in my husband's family, the very same feeling, and you cannot compare it to anything else. It's that ultimate feeling of belonging.
That's right. And so one of, I think, the duties of a chief is to keep the stories alive of the past history. And you don't do that by collecting them yourself. You literally are like the CEO of a company. So we have a gentleman in our clan, and that is his job, is to collect and preserve the stories of our past. And in fact, next year in Scotland, we'll be celebrating one of our most celebrated Scots. His name is Alan Bean. You may know him as an astronaut of the United States, the fourth person to step foot on the moon. And he took our tartan to the moon. So we are now the Moon Clan.
As long as you're not mooning, I guess it's okay, right?
Now you've got to be careful if a Scot moons you.
I had to go there, didn't I? Had to go there.
Yeah.
That's fascinating stuff. So when you normally go to Scotland every year for the Standing Council of Chiefs, yes?
Usually for me every 2 years. And it's been that way partially because my father has been very active in his role up until 2015-16. And then if we take that year and then we say there was a pandemic that we're just leaving, it hasn't been quite every 2 years.
Right. So what happens at the Standing Council of Chiefs? Do you have to have a secret handshake to get in the room?
You have to have a secret bloodline to get in the room.
Only that?
Yeah. You know that the Standing Council of Chiefs is actually a fairly young organization, and it was originally sort of set up as a lunch club. My grandfather went to one of the first ones, and it was always tied to the Queen's garden party. So there would be a just tremendous banquet put on, and then after the banquet, all the chiefs would go to the Queen's garden party. So that's kind of how it started. Now the Scottish chiefs have gotten quite a bit more serious about what are their roles, what do they control, what can they do that's good for their organizations. So, for example, the tartan that you see me wear. In today's world, it's up to the Scottish chief to say which tartans are the official tartans of that clan. It is outside the heraldry of the Lord Lion Court, and it really started as a fashion statement. But now it's become kind of serious business with the clan chiefs. And we have just eliminated 3 redundant tartans, and we are in the process of creating a new one.
Oh, so your new tartan is simply for the clan, or is it a special reason?
Well, we haven't had something that clan members want, which is we as a clan haven't had a hunting tartan. And a hunting tartan literally means what it says. It's a tartan designed to hide you in hunting. So the Clan Mcbain tartan that I'm wearing would probably not be wise unless you were hunting on Halloween. So it will be mostly greens and blues, and it is not finished in design yet. It was a project I started with my father just after he retired, and I want to make sure that he's comfortable with it.
Very nice. So this, we've had a little talk in some segments about tartans and tartan fabrics and patterns. So will this tartan have the same, say, number of threads?
Thread count.
Thread count in like I'm looking at your kilt. So there's a certain number of white threads, and then there's a certain number of red threads. So will it have those same thread counts but in different colors?
We started off with my grandfather's tartan, When my grandfather matriculated his arms in 1958-59, the Lord Lion and he worked together to create a unique tartan for my grandfather.
Ah.
And it is very subtly different from the tartan I'm wearing today. In fact, I still have his tartan that was wove in 1960, and I often wear it at Scottish games when I'm thin enough to wear it. But that tartan I just recently elevated within our clan to be the official clan, because our oldest tartan, which I am wearing, was frankly just created in the fashion world of tartans. And my grandfather's is one of only 50 tartans that is actually logged in the Lord Lion court. Because for a short time, the court had thought about adding tartans to the heraldry section, which is what they work on, but they didn't end up doing that. So we started that as a basis point, and I'm working with one of the head tartan designers in Scotland, and as I saw various designs, the idea of red and greens together just didn't work for me. So we're going all green with blue, but it is not the same thread count, because I wanted to introduce colors that show an affiliation to our larger group, the Clanhatten group.
Oh, fascinating.
So we are using well, I can say this, but I can't say it's official yet, because it may not be the final design, but we're using a yellow and blue thread to designate being part of the belt, if you will. Mm-hmm. So symbols of Scotland, wearing a belt. If you ever see a clan badge, I doubt you can zoom in on this, but as you go to games, you'll see people walking around with badges. And they are actually belts, and they'll have a buckle on them. Mine does not, because I am not a member of the clan. I am the clan, is the interpretation of that. So any Scottish chief will have a ring without a buckle. Again, this is the symbolism that we look at when possibly we don't share the same language to understand whom we are talking to.
So if I met you somewhere and we really didn't speak the same language, but I understood your...
The heraldry.
Yes, and I would come up, shake your hand, I'm looking, and I would go, oh yes, so I see who he is. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that when you address a chief, you call him by one word.
Chief?
His last name.
Ah.
He is the clan.
He is the clan, right.
So you would refer to my father as Mcbain. Full stop. Not James Mcbain, just Mcbain.
And tell me if I'm right or wrong, because I may be very wrong. If I am talking about your father to somebody, for instance, I say, well, I saw the Mcbain at the grocery store the other day. If I was...
That is often done, and that's fine.
Okay.
But as we have in any area of discussion, people aren't going to understand what that means. So then we could give the full title. It just depends on the level of understanding the person you're talking with. But yes, the Mcbain is entirely appropriate. Mcbain of Mcbain would be appropriate, as would the same naming of other clan chiefs.
Fascinating stuff. I think this whole, the creation of the tartan, it's, when you're talking about creating that, and it's such an honor to your grandfather who did so much to elevate the Clan Mcbain, yes, and collect history and be a part of the history. That's, to me, that's the ultimate appreciation for what he did. I love that. I love that story. I wish everyone had that in their family.
Yeah, and so kind of what I do now is I try to work very much with clan members. So when it comes to this hunting tartan, it's not being made in a vacuum. I mean, I have certain things I really think should be there, and I think that I and some of the people that are closest to the design understand why those elements should be there. But I am definitely going to sort of quietly pass it around to other clan members because it's everybody's. It's not the clan chiefs. It's part of the clan. So it's important that all the things be part of the clan.
Very good. Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you. Do you have any more stories for me?
I just have one. We mentioned earlier about us being the Moon Clan. And there is actually a story that goes around where Alan Bean, who we'll be honoring at Clan Mcbain Memorial Park next year, when he went to the moon, he actually went to a tartan shop, and when he bought...
On the moon?
No, but that's where it ended up.
All right.
And he... and I guess whomever was at the shop recognized who he was and recognized, or he must have told them what he planned to do, and they kind of said, so jokingly, what do you plan to do with that? Do you plan to claim the moon for Scotland? He says, no, I plan to claim it for the Mcbains.
And so he did.
I don't know. Some things are a mystery. But next year, that clan fabric will be at Mcbain Park as we dedicate his memorial.
Oh, magic. That's just magic. I love it.
Well, great.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
A little aside, our organization, the Northern Arizona Celtic Heritage Society, really believes in this, keeping up all this tradition. And
Major donor.
And we've worked a little bit, with just a small wee bit, to help make your park a success, or make it, well, it's not like a theme park, I shouldn't say success, but make it a special place for clan members and non-clan members to go and just, feel the soil of Scotland.
That's right. And if you're in that park and you look over the edge, you might just see Nessie in Loch Ness, because it does overlook the Loch Ness.
Yes, she's there.
She's there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.